We're starting already. Chop, chop. Okay, my first day of being a tester, I was told we work on Scrum, Agile. Here's a book, read it, and apply yourself. That was September 6th, 2010. See? What, almost 9 years have passed since then. Within that period, I had the chance to work in different teams, companies, and processes. But generally speaking, all of it was agile mostly. Different level of success. And I would like to share my experience with you on the one hand. On the other, I'd like to tell you about one thing, that sometimes there is one word which is misunderstood. Even nowadays at this conference, this word is not interpreted the way it was originally invented. It's a separate issue of how to interpret it, or rather how and why people start to interpret it. A couple words about myself. I live double life here, because on the one hand I'm a tester, on the other I'm promoting outer space exploration. If you read Hubbard, you could read a couple of my materials. At the previous conference, I did an eclectic presentation by mixing together outer space exploration with testers' conclusions, and the material is not collected, so it's not easy to collect because it's hard for it to comply with both of this. I'll have only one outer space GIF here. So, this picture, what is it? How and why is it? What's the idea? Why is it in symbols? A normally built process of agile process are iterations. Normally moving iterations can be likened to a mechanism which does this work. I liked very much the watch mechanism, but there is one thing, that all the iterations of the same size. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they could be 2-week iterations, but it doesn't matter. Another example, when the pressure is changing, is an engine. When one can add throttle, it will be moving faster, reduce throttle, and the thrust will go down. But this work is performed normally here. In our human teams, unfortunately, people sometimes experience a burnout, leave, get tired, and it gets worse. There is a very good test, I think that was Elizabeth Hennickson's blog, a tester who put up a very good post-test. It's called Litmus Paper for Your Agile. And it was a criterion how often you issue releases. It wasn't written there, but it is implied how your team, what is the experience of your team after that. Naturally, after that we have a dark side. If you read Agile Manifesto, it was written by more general words, but you can make different conclusions out of it. For instance, you can say that the faster, like let's bring deadline closer. Why do we need documentation? Let's abandon it, and everything will be done at the last moment. We'll fix everything. This is Agile, right? But unfortunately, based on my personal experience, I saw toxic releases of Agile more often than not. And some case studies related to that. You understand where this quote comes from, right? Where does it come from? Yes, this is a military saying, but when there is army saying when you work from the fence until the dinner time, but it turns on its head here. We come early in the morning from dawn until the fence, meaning until we reach the result. So this way, it turns out to be quite sad and depressing. So the most depressing examples that I heard of, or rather lived through, were about the processes, when any process is better than the lack thereof. See, I'm not an agile coach. I'm not promoting agile. I'm a tester that used it. And I'm rather advocating for you feeling more comfortable under the conditions where you work. See the difference? I'm not saying that this is the silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. I will speak separately about this. No silver bullets for you. And my goal here is not to advocate, but rather to make your life easier. And under these conditions still, we have a situation that agile processes are better than nothing. My example from my own life, at one of the teams, at one of the works, it didn't work well. We were over deadline and the quality was no good, piece poor, and we decided to introduce agile. It was quite natural for us. In close future, we had an important deadline that we had to make, and we decided, or rather not us, but the person who made the decisions decided at verbatim to do this. Let's finish this, get this off our hands, and then everything will be done according to the processes. Maybe you're familiar with that. Should I tell you what happened? It happened even worse than we expected, because instead of making the distance, we crawled until the end, everything fell down, we started to try to fix it, and there was no smooth transition, unfortunately, as we had expected. I'm confident that statistically, you also have much more deplorable stories to share. Now, please divide yourselves into groups, 2-3 persons, and start to remember your stories of failure. You have 3 minutes for that, about the processes which were not followed processes, and what eventually can lead to.
Так, время вышло.
Okay, time is up. Time is up. Now, I want a volunteer who can come up here on the stage and tell us about his trash story. And I have good gifts to distribute here. There are office boomerangs that you can throw in a room, and they will always return to you. This doesn't symbolize the futileness of our work. This is just a great gift. So, any volunteers? Please come up over here. I need a microphone. So the criterion that we use here is that it was deplorable and depressing because you wanted to work intuitively without following processes. Hello, my name is Yelena. We had a situation when we had to show the product team something, at least something, but we had no process to follow. And we decided, let's show them something, some time frame, and after we show it, then we'll fine-tune it. And eventually, when we showed high-level estimations, we showed how allegedly it will follow. They start to fix. They turned those estimations into deadlines, right? And you had to follow those deadlines, right? But then we fixed it, of course. Okay. Okay, wait here, please. This is a small diameter. This is a big one. There are people who are afraid of the bigger diameter one. Which one do you want? I will teach you how to throw it. Next one. One more. My name is Natalia. And we tried to use Agile in company. Maybe we did something good, but not always. It was a week deadline, and it took forever to do the development. It was only 2 hours before release, and we could you show anything. We said, okay, let's fix this 50 bugs in 1 hour, and then in half an hour I wrote to the manager the way you shouldn't press, what thing you shouldn't show. And okay, it's very good story. Thank you very much. Keep your boomerang. For that, I have a quote. It will be the last slide with a quote. Okay, great. Moving on. Next story. What is cargo cult? Everybody knows, but if you don't know this, cargo cult on Polynesia, not far from Australia. Once upon a time, there lived people who lived during World War II times, and they saw white people who brought some goodies dropping there from airplanes, and they thought that white people are run by gods with these great goodies because they have these runways and airplanes. They decided to make their own planes out of bamboo sticks. Let's march around, and we'll also have these goodies dropping on us from the air. So this is the cargo cult. What is cargo cult under current interpretation? It's quite modern. When the formal signs of something are imitated without really understanding how it really works, thinking that by a wave of magic wand it will happen. Just like those poor Polynesian people, usually it doesn't work how the way expected. So failure stories, we decided to introduce Agile. We had a physical flip chart where we put posted sticks. Formally everything worked well. We performed almost all the elements aside from one quite an important one. For instance, we didn't have retro. We didn't look back into why we failed and what needs to be done to make it better. But in fact, it didn't help us either, because under the conditions when had this in the middle of the sprint, a product owner runs in and says, let's redo this, and it was simply futile to plan anything. So it was not a matter of Agile. It was simply impossible for us to perform this long wish list. And it was a cyclical thing. It was a funny story when at the later stage of project implementation, new features in the backend were the inclusion of the old features, which were switched off 3, 10, 20 sprints ago. Another story. This is the one of the officially made Chinese gifts on the fight with corruption. Do you see the problem? What is this problem? The Chinese characters are okay here. I asked the person who speaks Chinese, he said that the words here are related to corruption anyway. We break through them. Yes, exactly. So we have a bolt which is supposed to be screwed down, but they're nailed down by a hammer. So they won't hold well, because according to people who made the repairs, says that if you nail the screw down, that will fall off. It's not a glass, it's just drawn here. No, the problem is that they're using wrong set of tools here. Are you familiar with this comics, The Efficient Manager, Owl? Once I had a story when in one of the companies they decided to introduce Scrum. Let's introduce it everywhere in all teams, just by army method. Looks ugly but efficient, right? There were DevOps. For instance, if you introduce Scrum in DevOps team, then the dropped production can be raised at the end of the next sprint. Maybe one can live like this, but it's very bad living. I was unlucky, but it was a unique case, after which I enter this comic and I see absolutely the same story when they use wrong, unfitting methods under the conditions where they shouldn't, under no circumstances, be used. Like we take the owl and we pull the owl over the globe. Second element, when we discuss stories, when the processes were ill applied formally or unfitting process, you discuss it in your groups, 3 minutes for you, and then you'll vocalize your stories. Again, I repeat that there is no silver bullet solution.
Время вышло. Время.
And time is up. Anyone?
Добрый день, Елена.
Hello, my name is Elena. We had a situation when at our project It took more than a year, 2 years. Everybody was sure that we were using Scrum. Everybody realized that something is wrong with that. Something doesn't compute, but still we're using Scrum. But then the managers ordered training on Agile. A coach came in. He told us about Agile and Scrum and Kanban. And it turns out that we were using Kanban. Now we are doing Kanban then. But was it helpful? No, it didn't work out well. Didn't work out well to use Scrum because it was Scrum. Okay, good story. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, who's next? Hello, my name is Alina. In our company, we had a project called Unification, which had 16 complexes, and the first 3 months we were testing 4 of them, 4 of these installments. And but a week before deadline, it turned out that we have 12 installations totally unprepared. They were all different. They were linked together, but more or less different logic in all of them. And as a result, before that, 4 projects were tested by 2 testers. We have a total of 12 now. The whole testing department was put on this. In the last 48 hours, we were testing the remainder of 12 projects to the best of our knowledge. Of course, you couldn't test as well. The quality was very low. If you have 9 women, of course, they will give birth to somebody to you. Okay. Thank you very much. Here's a boomerang for you. Now, specifically for you not to be afraid that I'm scaring you off.
Запуск индийский запуск, на который...
And so this is an Indian launch. This is the camera showing the decoupling from dispensers number of satellites, one after another, release after release, more than 100 of them. So don't think that I've come here to scare you, because in my story I have good positive examples, a number of paradoxical ones. For instance,
I have a story where we worked using Agile technique with daily releases. And it worked perfectly. We had a customer from another corner of the globe. We had a backlog of prioritized tasks. We tested what we could, and in the evening we sent it to him and received feedback next morning. Why do you think I don't go to conferences telling everyone that this is the best way to deal with it? That's because this seems like an excellent way, but this is not scalable. As soon as you start something chunky, you can't fit it into one day, and your customers are not going to check what you did every night. Like I told you, there are no silver bullets. You need to try to find a methodology that will work for you. And if you design something like a nuclear power plant, you cannot do the first version, blow it up, do another version, blow it up again, and then choose the third option. You gotta use other methodologies. The third stage. What was the most shining example of a good integration of methodology? I'm sure that you must have some good examples, positive examples.
Так, уже тянут руки, я вас вижу, я вас обязательно позову, но еще есть время обсудить.
Arms being stretched out into the air. Just wait a little.
Время. Кто там тянул руку?
Time's up. Who raised their hand? Hi, I'm Nadezhda. We have two successful integrations, but you have time for one. In 2003, we implemented extreme programming. It was just as you described. Someone came to us who read a new, interesting, smart, intelligent book, and he said that uh, this thing works. I no longer have to be ashamed during reporting sessions to the manager, and we implemented that. And recently, we issued the 100th release. We issued special pins. Still, 100 releases. This is a big achievement for us. Thank you. This is your boomerang. Keep it. Well, in this audience, it appears the girls are the brave ones. Hi, we had a problem, and when we received a lot of tasks and bugs had to be found in the analytical part, not in the code. So requirements came to us concerning the analytics. So we did the analytical review, and this helped reduce the number of rejects. The next step we did, we started testing through GitLab, and then jointly with developers we started checking what they did. And as a result, the the recall rate was about 20%. In fact, you raised a very good subject. The earlier you start testing, the more problems you can catch. There you go. So, moving on. I already talked about this during one of the presentations. What comes to mind when you hear the word proactivity? Proactive. Any ideas? You see this picture, the success story. The person is proactive. Has anyone seen this picture? Is this Carnegie? No, it's not him, but it's great that you know Carnegie. This is Viktor Franklin, a psychologist, a head shrinker, who was put in the Nazis' concentration camp. All of his relatives died in camps, and he was lucky because he managed to survive the horrible experience of staying at the camp. And he noticed that in a situation when you have no freedom at all over what you do, what you wear, or what kind of work you have to do, no liberty, no freedom, there is just one fundamental freedom that nobody can take away from you. And this is the freedom of attitude, freedom of perception. And this is what he referred to as proactivity. It's not something that you would do voluntarily. A proactive person can be active, can do more things without being pressured from outside. Well, we have our issues, our problems. We can be consumed with work, excessive work. We can suffer from inferiority complexes. We can think that we're bad employees. The imposter syndrome might kick in. So we might get bogged down in things and we lose sight of proactivity and of how we live. A proactive person can make different conclusions. For example, I want to reach success, so I'll be more self-assertive. I'll take up more assignment. I will go home by 11 p.m. But I want to reach success. On the other hand, a proactive, just as proactive a person might as well say that I'm going to work from 9 till 6 just to survive and not to starve to death. In the free time, I will be working on the side doing one of the projects. You know, perhaps it will become a hit one day. But it doesn't mean that the latter, was a bad example of proactivity. So it's not about going for more money or being driven by other motivation. This is a misapplication. And how did it come to be? One wonders. Perhaps it's unintelligent people try to make other people work more. Maybe not. A proactive person might be someone who prefers to work more based on his or her system of values. But for some reason, this connotation got lost. But this is a topic for a completely different discussion. If you're interested, we could bring this up in the lobby. So what do we do? Here's what my experience drives me to conclude. First, you need to understand yourself. I mean, there was a great story when people implemented Scrum and it turned out that they work under Kanban. I mean, nobody had a clue what was happening. So this is the most important thing. You gotta figure yourself out. What are you doing? What is the methodology you work under called? And what does it do? What does it include? You may remember in the beginning I didn't quote from the Agile manifest. I described to you how a normally functioning process works, and you should come to grips with what your company does. So we need to size up the situation. Do you have possibilities? Can you influence the situation? If so, what can you do? So you try to realize what's happening and what you can or cannot do to make a difference. Is there hope for better in the future? Is there a hope to change something? Well, it's easy. If you got to the bottom of it, then let others know. As a line tester, I sometimes went around explaining to people how Scrum works. I mean, if someone from outside the team comes in and dumps on you some information about a new magical program that works, and a completely different when someone from inside does it. So it's not only about how we do, but rather why we do it. Unfortunately, there is one more option where we are hopeless. Last time around, I said that, and I say it again. Psyche is one of the key tools of testing. A run-down workhorse cannot test well. I mean, if something is communicated to us from top down to test, we still gotta keep a fresh mind, stay conscious. And for that, we need a well-functioning mental system Otherwise, we will turn into careless creatures who will not generate any kind things, and then we might end up in an institution. And also, a proactive person is able of understanding that he can also vote with his feet. If everything is wrong, you might go to another company. And for that, you need to stay proactive, because if you're way in over your head with one project, this idea might never cross your mind. I mean, everything is tuned up to one work. These people are not proactive. I mean, stay conscious of what's happening in your mind. Be aware. And the final slide, great slide, is a book about what you do when things are really bad.
Задуматься о том, чтобы поискать другую. Я начинаю
How do I determine if I need to change a job? I read a book by Pokrovsky, a book about the life of submariners, Soviet submariners. A U-boat is a complex machinery. One wrong move and you might kill the entire submarine crew. And you too might be killed because of that. So, submariners who are intelligent, erudite, and smart, and they face this submarine structure or system. And I tell you that the army mess or disarray is something that is needed for the army to function well. You may have seen an example in the internet of the carrier which is manned by crew which is not motivated, but somehow they make the terror carrier work instead of going to the bottom of the ocean. So these are my favorite quotations. You remember there was a speaker who said that they pretended that they do one thing and they did something else. If you do something fake, it should stay fake. If you imitate something, then imitate it well. I like this one also. It's very philosophical, really beautiful. Submariners were strictly male, so dismounting a U-boat is only possible if you are a corpse and they didn't have the uterus. And the most important is this one, which helps you keep your proactivity. I mean, take it easy. And the epilogue, 4 books by Henrik Nyberg, Scrum and XP, Notes from the Front Line. A recently published book, but you gotta look for it yourself. I don't provide any links here. I mean, use your brain. You wanna find it, go and look for it. Then Viktor Frankl, Say Yes to Life. Stephen Covey, 7 Skills of Highly Skilled People. Carnegie gave ready-made recipes. I mean, do this or use that body language and it will work. But Stephen Covey realized that you need to change yourself, to put yourself in a situation where everything will be okay. You cannot learn by heart any magical moves that will help you improve. I mean, you need to change yourself first. Someone who can test or make money. And Alexander Pokrovsky, To Be Executed, 1 and 2. It's great that I have a talk on the first day. During the after party, you can come up to me and ask questions about testing. I'm wide open and be happy to talk to you. Your questions. I see a guy having a question. Hi everyone. In fact, I have a very simple question. How can you determine in early stages that you gotta get rid of cargo cult? Does your team know what the cargo cult is? They do. So if someone think that uh, miraculously there will be a magical formula that will work, okay, how can I do it without insulting anybody? Can you talk to your team in such a language so that no one would get offended? Can you do that? Well, this question is no longer on the table. Thank you for your talk. How do you think we can balance keeping nerves intact and proactivity? There is no contradiction here. Your proactivity manifests itself in staying out of stress. Well, you are very young people, right? And you want to stay healthy and be of safe body and sane mind for a long time. For that, you need to take care of your nervous system. It's all proactivity. But to make changes happen, you need to to exert effort. You spend nerve cells. Yes, proactively you understand some changes are necessary, and I want to make those changes happen because they have value. In fact, this very understanding of why you do what you do will help preserve your nervous system. I am not going to state that this is a proven fact, but there is a post-traumatic stress disorder after combat, and it happens when people were not motivated to fight in a war. They didn't know what they were doing in a war, but at the moment it's unscientific. My name is Julia, and my question is, first we keep working, and then bam, we have Kanban. So when you have a new project, should a manager read it first and then let everybody know? I mean, we're gonna do this, and then in the process, we'll see how it works. Or should we invite a coach and pay him up front? I have no ready-made solution. If you have a good proposal and a very good coach, I mean, you can do it yourself. If you have financial capabilities, you can bring in a coach. In fact,
Not always can you get what you're wishing for, but you can still do pretty decent work. At one of the projects, I remember we're trying to say that what we're doing here, Kanban applies here much better because we have service tasks which do not work well in Scrum. Eventually, we failed to convince our management, but the situation has improved because all the service-related tasks were lifted from us. We didn't achieve what we wanted to, but the level of work remains to be at the previous level, especially when injured. Thank you very much. But coach is better if possible. Well, the better is always the option which fits you better. There's no silver bullet. If you think that you can sort it out, if your eyes are burning, it's much better than a coach. Because a coach might be quite formulaic, going through the motions, just making a quick buck here. I have no universal fit for all recipes here. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Hello. Great presentation, very interactive, communicative. My question, if we introduce Agile within the framework of a scientific experiment, hypothesis experiment and conclusions, who is going to make conclusions? Should it be a separately trained person, like an expert, or should it be the whole team, or the management, using some metrics for that? And the second question right away, while you're still fresh, if we suggest introducing something interesting, should we get supporters first and then give it to a team, or do it yourself? Well, to answer your second question, it's easier, of course, because remember the famous Yaralash series, when there's a gang of kids and the old guy approaches them with the goat, says, give us money or this goat is going to prod you with the horns. Well, they gave him the money and they said, remember why it didn't attack us? Because we're a gang. So it's better to apply it to a team, and you need to be consistent with that. I think it stands to logic better, although I can imagine a situation when it won't work and we'll have to do it alone. Start with one person. Again, once again, there are no silver bullets, there are no universal solutions that can help you with that. Yes, the second question about the conclusions. I almost forgot the first one. Yes. In fact, if you can set a scientific experiment based on the introduction of any methodology, then you have such a well-oiled process of communication that nothing can hurt you. Because if you can explain that you're doing an experiment, if you can develop metrics for such an experiment, if you can see how it was, how it is, then logically enough, it should be assessed by a group made up of people who make decisions, by the ones who are inspired by this, like a working group, I'd say. Because the team might say that I liked it or I didn't like it, I felt uncomfortable about it. Yes, well, like, didn't like, this is just one of the metrics. But if the team says that they liked it, but you did 5 times more with and much more efficiently, then the question is, maybe you become part of it or not. See, what I told you could have been understood differently. Because the problem is that there are people who are more conservative, who just don't like some changes. You're making changes, they say, no, we don't like it, we don't like it. Time passes after that, and they say, okay, I get used to it. This is quite normal, this is not applying force against a person. I'm not advocating for that in any way. There are situations when you're doing something new, other people have different mentality. They say, oh, it's cool, let's follow it. And then the novelty has passed and it becomes boring for them. It also happens. In fact, the question is that for you to get a feedback and act according to the feedback that you receive. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Another important thing, it looks like after one of the presentations, a person approached me from the testers team and he asked me, how did you end up here? I said, I'm making a presentation here. He said, well, it's hard thing to make a presentation. I said, no, in fact not. First, the organizers tell you in the opening session. I understand that you might not trust organizers, but after the story, I decided to tell you that it's totally easy. It can even help you. You'll have supervisors who will talk to you. These supervisors are not criticizing you. You have invented a stupid thing here, or you're totally wrong here or something. No, they will help you. So if there is a will, don't be afraid to make presentations. That's it. Thank you. Let's give it up to our speaker.